Ladies and gentlemen, our program is about to begin. Please take your seats.
It was kind of a crisis moment.
Our first panel of the afternoon is Mobile and Local Opportunities for Publishers and Advertisers. It gives me great pleasure to announce our experts. On stage are Greg Sterling, Eli Portnoy, and Bryson Meunier. Greg is the contributing editor of Search Engine Land. Greg has multiple roles as a contributing editor, senior analyst, and founder of Sterling Market Intelligence, a consulting firm focused on the internet's impact on offline consumer behavior. Previously, he ran BIA Kelsey's interactive local media program. Greg was also a producer at Tech TV, where he worked on the show Working the Web. Second, Eli Portnoy is CEO of Meunier, a hyperlocal mobile ad solution funded by IA, Google, and Qualcomm. He was a senior product manager at Amazon and a successful entrepreneur. Eli has been named one of the top young entrepreneurs by Business Week, the 21st coolest young entrepreneur by Inc. magazine, and a top entrepreneur under 30 by the New York Daily News. Bryson is the director of content solutions for Resolution Media. He is the primary architect of the natural search product and Clear Target digital behavior analysis. He currently works with the content team to help drive SEO strategy and execution for their clients and adopts emerging technologies when they are relevant to their business. They will each present some information. Thank you. Yeah.
Okay. Food was pretty good at lunch. How many people had the churros? That's apparently a craze in South America now. All right, so I've got about 10 minutes to give you a lot of slides and a lot of information on mobile and local, and I have a lot of data. So I'm told that you'll be able to get the slides after the conference is all over, so you don't have to take detailed notes. If you want to reach out to me afterwards and ask me questions or want clarification or want my slides, I'm happy to give them to you, but I'll summarize what the slides are about. So you heard a little bit about me. I'm an analyst and blogger, editor. I've done a lot of things. I originally started out as a lawyer, and I have a personal blog, Screen Work, and I write for Search Engine Land, Marketing Land, and also Internet to Go. So you know, you always hear people talking about the year of mobile. How many people have heard this at other conferences? Oh, the year of mobile. When will we have the year of mobile? Okay, so a few people have heard that joke. Basically, last year was the year of mobile in terms of consumer adoption, consumer breakthrough. So now we're living this reality where we've got 4 screens and maybe 5 screens if the car becomes an internet access point, which it probably will. We've got tablets. I'm not going to talk too much about that today. The Pew Internet Life Project said that about 19% of consumers now have tablets. How many people in the room have a tablet? Quite a few. All right. The PC has become one of only several screens that people use to access the internet. That's kind of the key point here in a certain way. PC is no longer the only screen in town, as it were. Mobile is complicated. It's about being on the go. It's about being at the point of sale. But it's also about being at home. A lot of people, 90%, access their mobile devices at home while they're watching TV in the bedroom, et cetera. And then the point I'm going to make through data is that localized ads outperform generic ads, outperform national ads. So that's why you should care about local. This is a point that may seem self-evident, but is often not known by people. 95% of retail transactions are offline. $4 trillion. As big as e-commerce is, it's a tiny drop in the bucket compared to conventional retail. Yet, most of what we buy now, if we have internet access, is influenced by the internet in some way. We do research online, increasingly on our phones, tablets, and then more often than not, we buy in a store. So there's a digital influence on that offline purchase. That's kind of the key thing to understand about what's going on in local. Here's an illustration of that. I was talking to my co-panelists earlier. This is a study that was done by an agency, a firm that works with retailers, and they used a couponing system to measure the impact of online ads on the point of sale and search in particular. And they found that search marketing had 6 times the impact in stores that it had online. For every $1 that converted online, there were $6 that were spent in the local store. Smartphones, everybody in the room probably has one. More and more smartphones. This is kind of the critical driver of mobile internet adoption. Different studies show different numbers, 70 to 80% of people accessing the internet to varying degrees on mobile phones. New data, 69% access it daily on their smartphones. A lot of people, over 100 million people now in the US have a smartphone accessing the mobile internet. Mobile users are what I'll call shopivores, omnivores. They go online, they buy stuff locally. Most of them are moving back and forth between the PC and the real world. Smartphones are used chiefly right now as shopping assistants in the store to do price research and product research. How many people do this? They go into a store, they scan a barcode, or they secretly look on Amazon. Can I get it cheaper there? I mean, seriously, how many people are doing this? This is something that retailers are afraid of. There was an article in the Wall Street Journal just this week about Target getting very upset about this so-called showrooming behavior. But this is here to stay, and if you can influence a mobile user in the store at the point of sale, that's pretty powerful. This bottom stat, 77% of people conducting a local lookup on a mobile device have called the business, and 59% of them go into the business. So this gives you the idea of the power of and immediacy of these devices and people's needs when they're using them. I have to do a quick time check here. Okay. For people under 45, more than 50% in the US already have a smartphone. We'll cross the 50% threshold this quarter or next quarter for the general population. Demographically, the most affluent consumers have smartphones. And different firms, IDC, Gartner, et cetera, are predicting that in 3 years, what year is it? 3 years, there will be more mobile devices used for internet access than the PC. That's going to happen around the world faster than in the US, but it's going to happen. Just the numbers are going to make that a true statement. Windows revenues, Microsoft saw a decline in PC Windows revenues of 6% last year. So again, the PC is just one device now among several that are being used for internet access. This is a slide that was generated by an analytics firm called Flurry Analytics, and they measure stuff that happens on mobile phones and in apps in particular. What this shows is that people are now spending more time, according to this data, with apps on mobile phones than they are on the PC internet. Advertising, different forecasts in the market. One of these is mine, the one at the bottom, and the others are from different firms. You've got a range of forecasts. Google said recently it had a $2.5 billion run rate in search and display advertising on a global basis. This year, they'll probably say it's gone up to $4 billion. There's a lot of money moving into this segment quickly. Now, when you combine local and mobile, you get this very powerful effect where people are focused on something that they want to accomplish. They want to go eat somewhere, they want to go to an event, they want to get to a place, they need the hotel, et cetera. And I cited some stats a little bit earlier that illustrated that. Google said that about 40% of search on mobile devices through a browser is local, has a local intent or related to location. And Microsoft and Google have illustrated how quickly people move from search to some kind of action, going into a store, making a buying decision. Happens within an hour, within a couple of hours of that lookup. Much different than PC behavior where there's a longer time horizon, people doing research. On the go, people are much more inclined to look something up and then go do that thing. Call, visit, buy. Now this is an interesting slide from a mobile ad network called Jywire. Have you ever been to access free Wi-Fi at an airport somewhere? LAX, or I don't know if they have it at LAX. SFO, they have it. So if you do free Wi-Fi at an airport, these guys are supporting that with some kind of sponsor message. Anyway, what they have found through testing is that when you have local ad creative or localized content, people respond to those ads much more. There's a big lift. Clicks, other kinds of engagements, a standard ad here versus a localized ad. This can be a national ad for a brand, Ford or Target or Starbucks. When you put that local content in the ad, it makes it much more relevant to people. Okay, coming in under 2 minutes here. Some numbers from Google: higher click-throughs when you have a local number associated with your ad on a mobile device. This is from a mobile ad network called XAD, location-targeted ads and mobile. And this is actually display. Actually, Ellie and I were talking. Yeah. This is display, which you may not believe, but this is what they said: 5 to 8% click-throughs, just much higher than the norm. Better awareness. This is the Mobile Marketing Association. Localized content and ads and mobile ads, better awareness. All the brand metrics are boosted. And this is my final slide. This is a slide I pulled from another deck. Basically, this is the way in which mobile devices are helping to revolutionize digital advertising, in part, is because they provide much more data on what people are actually doing. There used to be a big gap between the behavior that I talked about at the beginning, where people would look online for information, and then they would show up in the store and buy something. That was never trackable, except through coupons, which most people didn't use. Now, with Foursquare and Shopkick and all these different sites, sensors in stores, you can get a sense of people coming into the store, checking into the store, and that makes the world, the real and the digital worlds, much closer together. And there's going to be a whole data revolution, I think, coming from all this offline behavior being tracked and analyzed and fed back into online marketing. And so, if you want to follow me, you can follow me. If you want to email me, ask for the slides or ask me questions, or didn't understand something, you thought I was full of you-know-what, you can tell me that. But I think that this is a really important area, and I'm going to turn it over now to my co-panelists. Bryson or Ellie, are you? Okay.
Ellie.
Yeah, Ellie. So thank you very much.
Hi. Wait for the slides to come up. So what we do at Meunier is we help advertisers effectively use hyperlocal campaigns. So we actually execute it for them. We provide both the access to the impressions as well as the targeting tools to effectively target the impressions and reach the right consumers. And we've run about 400 different campaigns for about 400 different advertisers since we've launched. And what I'd like to talk about are some of the opportunities we see in mobile display, some of the challenges inherent in running mobile display campaigns, and then some of the things that we've seen that really work and help advertisers effectively use mobile as a medium to target consumers. So mobile advertising online is that display, that banner you see on most of the websites you visit, and that's about a $25 billion a year industry. The equivalent on mobile is that tiny little ad you might see when visiting a mobile website or a mobile application, and that's about $1 billion a year industry right now. But it's expected to grow to $23 billion by 2016. Now, most of that growth is driven by the proliferation of smartphones in the US. So in 2009, about 18% of all phones were smartphones, and 2 years later, by 2011, that number had grown to 44%. That's 96 million smartphones in the US alone. That's a lot of smartphones. And on average, people with a smartphone are spending over 60 minutes a day consuming media on it. That's browsing the web, using applications, playing games. And that's about 8% of the total time they're spending consuming media. So movies, TV, web, newspapers, all of that combined, mobile represents 8% of that. But what's really interesting is that it only represents half a percent of the total dollars spent on media. So lots of people are browsing the web and using their applications and basically using their phone, but very, very few advertising dollars are targeting them. The discrepancy is huge. And what that means is that there are a lot of impressions available, there are a lot of eyeballs available, and very few advertising dollars behind them. So most impressions are not being sold. And that's why when you go on a lot of mobile websites or apps, you actually won't see any ads, and it's because no one sold them. And that, in industry jargon, that's the fill rate, and it's abysmally low in mobile. But that's the opportunity, because if no one is buying these impressions, then they're actually pretty cheap. And so the opportunity is to start taking advantage of these impressions. And not only are they cheap, but they're also incredibly effective. We saw some slides earlier about how effective one ad network has seen their campaigns run, but we've also seen incredible click-through rates on mobile, and across the industry, click-through rates range between 0.25% and 10%, so very, very high click-through rate. But what doesn't work, and the real challenge, is that you can't just port a web campaign and try to do it on mobile. It just doesn't fit. Just like you couldn't take radio and port it to the TV, you need to understand the inherent differences between the two platforms, between web and mobile, and really create campaigns that take advantage of the uniqueness of mobile. So one of the things that's different about mobile and web are cookies. Cookies are the lifeblood of web advertising. Cookies are the way advertisers track consumers across the different sites they visit and basically create profiles for them so that they could better target them. On mobile, cookies just don't work. Apps are essentially silos, so they can't pass cookies between one another. And mobile web on iOS, by default, blocks third-party cookies. So cookies just don't work. The second thing is the screen size. On a computer, you have a pretty big screen, and on a phone, you don't. But mobile does have a lot of inherent strengths. And I'd like to talk a little bit about them, because I think understanding the strengths of mobile is really how you can build campaigns that really work. So the first one is that it's the most personal screen we have. It's a screen that we have in our pocket, but when we look at it, no one else is looking at it with us. It is a one-to-one connection. The second thing, and this is a little bit more obvious, is that the phone is the device we take with us on the go. It's the device we make decisions on when we're out and about. It's also a phone, so it can make calls very easily. It's got a lot of inherent built-in capabilities that can be leveraged to run really successful campaigns. And finally, and definitely most importantly, it's local. It understands exactly where you are, both through GPS, Wi-Fi triangulation, cell phone triangulation. The phone knows exactly where you are, and that's an incredibly big opportunity for an advertiser. So how do you take advantage of all of these unique aspects of a phone to drive a really, really successful campaign? Well, the first thing you have to do is localize it. If you know where the person is, show them how far away your retail store is. Tell them what's near them. Make it about local, because if it's local, it just performs better. In the campaigns we've run, just by adding a little piece of text that said how many blocks away the retail store was, we saw a 2x increase in the click-through rate. The second thing you want to do is location has been a really key piece of data that advertisers have been taking advantage for decades. If you go to the airport, you'll see all sorts of billboards aimed at travelers. If you go into a sporting stadium, you'll see ads targeted to sports fanatics. You can do the same thing with mobile without actually having to go through the venues. You can target people who are in movie theaters. You can target people who are in airports. You can target people who are in shopping malls. That's an incredibly powerful local context that you can take advantage of in your campaigns. And then the last thing is, if you know where someone is, you also know what's happening around them. Now, when we started the company, we spent a few months in New York, and we were fascinated because everywhere we walked, we saw these street vendors, and they would sell sunglasses, and they would sell DVDs, and all sorts of neat stuff. And then all of a sudden, a few drops of rain would come down, and they'd flip over their cart, and they'd all have umbrellas, and they'd all start selling umbrellas. And that's the way you should think about your messaging as well. If you know where someone is, you know what's happening around them, and you can customize your ad to be relevant to what's happening near them. And then the last thing is, the phone has a lot of rich capabilities like we talked about. So make the ads rich media capable, make them interactive. Click-to-call is an incredibly powerful tool that needs to be a part of almost every campaign. And then the built-in mapping functionality should be brought to the forefront. Make it easy for people not just to see your ad, but then to take action on the ad. And so mobile's definitely still an evolving media. It's just not figured out. Not everything is there, but that's the opportunity. The opportunity is there because while everyone else is figuring it out, you can take advantage of incredibly cheap inventory that's really, really effective. Thanks.
Thank you, Bryson.
Thank you. How do I
think they'll bring it up.
wait for the slides to come up? Okay, so I'm Bryson Meunier. I'm the SEO director for Resolution Media, and I'm a mobile SEO expert. So I'm going to talk specifically about the mobile search. Specifically about mobile search. So while Ellie talked about display and Greg talked about mobile and local in general, I want to talk about the non-paid search aspects of mobile. So SOLOMO, this is an old slide actually. This is something that Mary Meeker of Kleiner Perkins introduced in 2011, but I think that SOLOMO is really just starting to take off. How many people have heard of SOLOMO in the room? So a couple of people. Some people are hearing it for the first time, but not too late. As Google says, it's not too late to be early in mobile, which is great. But SOLOMO, even though it is kind of new, I think that the concept has been around for a long time. So you see here a picture from the 30s where we have some people window shopping essentially. And I think that this is actually a picture of SOLOMO. So you have the ladies talking, and this is so. And then you have them in front of a window, so that's actually the local aspect, that's the low. And then the ladies are mobile, so they can have the conversation wherever they want, given their feet. So that's the mo aspect. So you've got SOLOMO. The point is, even though SOLOMO is this new thing, it's really based in something that marketers have been doing for years. When you think about SOLOMO, a lot of what marketers have to think about is, where are they going to advertise? Where are they going to build content? And a lot of this is going to be based on reach. And some people, when they think of SOLOMO, they think of Foursquare. Foursquare is important, but it's not the top mobile social network. Does anybody know what the top mobile social network is? Anybody think it's Twitter? Not Foursquare, but they're on the list. Facebook. Facebook is the number one with with 350 million active users. So they have 800 million active users, and 350 million of these users are mobile. So if you're an advertiser or a marketer and you're thinking about social mobile marketing, one of the easiest places to go is Facebook, and really think about how can you address people who are on their mobile devices. Twitter is next with 92 million active users. Then we have MySpace, yes, MySpace, with 25 million active users. Then MocoSpace. MocoSpace is a gaming platform, but it's also a social network with 20 million active users. And then Foursquare with 10 million active users. So the top 5 Maybe a little bit different than you would think, but if you're thinking just about reach, you really have to think about Facebook first. So Solomo, there are parts of it that aren't that difficult. We found that just by actively managing our local feeds, I don't know how many people have local feeds, but you can do small things that are going to make a big difference. Here we found that active management actually increased the check-ins by 302% in 6 months. So just by claiming your feed, essentially, it's going to have a big impact. So sites versus apps, and I hesitated to use this slide because Steve Jobs is no longer with us, but Steve Jobs really represented the app mentality. So that closed system where you are going to market your app to a very specific audience. And you have Eric Schmidt, on the other hand, now Larry Page, who's in charge of Google, who represents the open ecosystem. From a mobile search perspective, both sites and apps can be optimized. So you really shouldn't have the two parties warring, the sites versus apps. You should think of it as sites and then apps. So really focus on your mobile websites first, because the sites have 100% reach, where if you build an iPhone app and everybody on every iPhone owner actually downloads it, you're only going to have something like 7% reach. So if you want reach, you really want to do mobile sites first and then the mobile apps. Mobile visual search is something that I think is really going to take off, and I think it's a real big opportunity for marketers who have optimized their mobile sites already, and they want to do something else to help them get more traffic. And I think you're going to, I don't know that Google Goggles and other mobile visual search apps like Layar are that popular at this point, but given that they're available, and people will, some people are using them regularly. I think that brands have an opportunity to really start to optimize for those, to control the messaging that they have in the images that is going to feed the results for this mobile visual search. So here, for people who aren't familiar with it, you've got a scenario where the consumer scans the product, the algorithmic results are then going to appear, and then the consumer is going to land on the website. So for a marketer, you really have to be thinking about these new modes where in this case, the searcher is searching, but they're really not using keywords, so it's a whole new paradigm. I know this is an eye chart. It's supposed to be an eye chart, actually. You really want to separate search results by platform. A lot of people don't think that there are differences between mobile SEO and desktop SEO, or mobile search and desktop search. There are actually quite a few. These are 14 differences between mobile search and desktop search, and this is really just as many as I could find in a half an hour. So you want to think about the differences between the different platforms and serve different content as it makes sense. Responsive design is a big thing in development in general. You want to make a site that shows up well on a desktop or a smartphone or a tablet, and I agree with this to some extent, but you really run into problems with responsive design when you have specific queries, things that tablet users are looking for that desktop users aren't looking for, or that smartphone users are looking for that tablet users aren't looking for. And in these cases, it makes sense to really build out separate mobile pages or separate tablet pages. So an example, you have the insurance industry, for example, where you have queries around insurance that someone might be looking for that, say, State Farm has on their site. And you can see that here we have the keyword, we've got the mobile volume, we've got the desktop volume, and then the mobile percent of the total volume. So you can see which keywords are more popular with smartphone users. And for towing, 73% of the volume for the keyword towing service comes from mobile devices. So for marketers, this really means that you want to foreground that towing content instead of trying to sell somebody insurance when they're on their smartphone. And this, to my mind, is where responsive design fails. You can see State Farm actually took advantage on their mobile site where they have accident help and find a repair facility, they could do it one better and put towing service on their site, but this is better than most companies. So 2 more slides. I think that there's going to be an increased emphasis on tablet searchers. I just wrote a column on this in Search Engine Land where you have different search behaviors. This is a slide from SMX West last year that Bing showed, where you have desktop and laptop searchers are really, they've got different behaviors. They're looking for excavation, so they do specific research behaviors that people don't do on their mobile phones or on their tablets. On tablets, they're just doing exploration, and on mobile phones, they're very task-focused. So as marketers, we have to be thinking about, how do we address these specific users in each of our sites. And then finally, I think that there are going to be mobile signals that are going to influence SEO as everyone does it. Last year in June, Google actually ported over image search and voice search from their mobile portal, from their mobile search to desktop and made it available for everyone. The principle of ubiquity is important to Google, and so I think as different signals make sense, are helpful in mobile search, they're going to apply to desktop search as well. Things like QR codes. You can actually track who visits from QR codes, so that'll be a separate link. Things like mobile bookmarks. Google has access to Android, and they can see whether or not people have bookmarked a site. So mobile versus desktop search demand, for example. As I just showed, towing is more popular in mobile than desktop. Google can see these things, and eventually, I would imagine that Google is going to use these in ranking. So these are things that marketers should be thinking about today that really give them a leg up. So thanks, and looking forward to answering your questions.
Thank you. I have several questions that I wanted to ask the panel. The first one is, I know several of you in the audience have asked, I keep hearing mobile's really getting hot, but how do I get started? I don't have like a full engineering team of mobile developers. I noticed, Bryson, you mentioned that you should probably start on mobile sites first, then, escalate up to the apps. Do you guys have any hints as to how to get started? And the consideration, would you ever start, if you were going to start a new website, would you ever start it with mobile first?
Yes, I would say that ESPN just made the headlines because they say that they're starting with mobile first now. And Google says start with mobile first and then build everything on top of that. So, there are some big brands now who are thinking, mobile first and then building all of the content on top of that. As far as how to get started, I think mobile site is that is table stakes. You really have to think of the mobile site before you start to build an app experience. And this is, as a marketer, I'm thinking of reach mainly. The fact that everyone can access the mobile site. And how you would do that, there are various platforms that you could get started with, various agencies that would help. There's a site that Google put up called howtogomo.com, and that is really designed to help somebody get started in the mobile web.
That site in particular has a list of mobile site developers and tools that people can use to build sites, and some of them are very sophisticated and others are very simple. In fact, you can just take your URL in a couple of cases and have a mobile site developed from your existing content. So that's howtogomo.com?
Mm-hmm. Howtogomo.com, yes.
Yeah. And that's a good resource.
And I would warn people, though. I know that in the early days of the web, people wanted a website. They just wanted to get online, right? And that's kind of like, and so they would go to GeoCities or they would go to Yahoo and just get a homepage that would be hosted on geocities.com. A lot of the, I think that the HowToGomo resource is fantastic, but you have to avoid any site any transcoder that will put you where you can't have your own URL.
On their domain.
We'll put it on their domain.
Somebody asked me at lunch about the .mobi domain, and my view of it is that it's irrelevant at this point. I don't know if there's any disagreement about that.
Well, I think that .mobi, it is basically irrelevant to some extent, But I think that if you're just building a mobile experience and you don't have, link equity from your desktop site, then you can build it on a .mobi or a .com or a .net. It doesn't really matter from Google's perspective. Any of those sites can do well, but you really have to, if you have a .com already, which most sites do, then it makes a lot more sense just to put an m.com instead of .mobi.
Yeah, I would say that one of the things, it's great advice because so many applications, so many different websites should be mobile first, but one of the things that's important, and it's very similar to some of the things I discussed on the advertising front, is it's not just about porting a website that was made for the web and putting it on a mobile device. There's so many unique elements that you can basically do with the mobile web that you just can't do online. And a really neat example, I think, is one of the venture capital funds out in New York. They have a full website, web website, and it's got all the information about them, all sorts of reasons as to why you want to take money from them. And then if you visit them on your mobile phone, the website basically just says, are you trying to get to us to a meeting? Here's a map, here's our phone number. And it understands that there's an inherent difference in how people use the web online and on their phone, and basically built two very different websites. It wasn't all the same information repackaged.
Very good. What are top 3 or 4 factors that are critical for publishers and advertisers to consider when trying to reach, attract, and convert targeted mobile traffic?
So on the publisher side, it amazes me to no degree that most mobile publishers right now are not passing latitude and longitude in their ad requests. So it's incredibly easy. It's basically a line of code for a publisher to pull the location of the user and use it as a targeting parameter for advertisers. Yet only about 5 to 10% of all impressions right now on mobile have that information. And it's been proven across the board that with that information, advertising rates go significantly up. NextStage, I think maybe 2-3 months ago, came out with a report that said that when you add location to your ad request, you end up seeing a 4x lift in revenue. That's massive. That's huge, especially in an industry where ad rates aren't all that high. So from a publisher's perspective, the first thing should be passing location.
From an SEO perspective for both publishers and advertisers, I think that it's extremely important to get your redirect strategy correct. So Google now has Googlebot mobile for feature phones. They have a Googlebot mobile for smartphones, and they have a desktop bot. And you really want to make sure that if you do have mobile content, that Google knows about that content through permanent redirects. So you do user agent detection and then redirect for the mobile bot or for the mobile consumer. That's one. I think mobile keyword research is also critical for both publishers and advertisers, so that they can understand what the differences are. As Ellie was talking about, it's not the same experience. You have to really cater to a different mindset. And I think the way that you can do that is really by understanding how the search behavior differs. And that's kind of what I showed with that State Farm example.
You might also look at your search logs or your traffic and see where people are spending time on the site, what the most common use cases are. This doesn't necessarily mean that would translate immediately into mobile, but when you're stripping things down for a mobile site, you want to focus on those things that are most important to the end user, and that may be the most popular areas or content on your site. It's an input into that decision making.
At what point do you think websites are just going to go away and it's going to be all mobile?
Never.
Never.
I do think that we get into this very complicated situation for everybody when Ford has now got the screens in their car, and more auto manufacturers are allowing you to access the internet and putting ads on the map and all of that, and you've got tablets and you've got different size smartphones and you've got PC. It just gets very multi-screen, and websites will always be present, but content is the important thing, and how that translates across the various screens is what becomes more significant over time, and maybe if there's a database underneath that.
I think there's an incentive for people to build websites instead of apps as well. Because they have more reach than the app ecosystem. And as I mentioned, you could build an iPhone app and still only reach 7% of the mobile world, where if you were to build a mobile website, you reach 100%. So, I don't think that we'll ever go to, apps exclusively because you always, the web is open and anyone can access the web.
What's going to happen in the app world? Everything I hear is that there are so many apps out there, it's just getting almost impossible to find anything. I mean, do you see like maybe a big indexing concept, or what's going to happen there?
Yeah, I mean, there are search engines now that specialize in looking for apps. So things like, the name is escaping me, it starts with a C.
Chomp.
Chomp, exactly. So Chomp is a specific app search engine. Google has actually, Google and Yahoo have both made changes to the way that they index things so that they can start to show apps when people are looking for them. So they will show something for Android Market or for iTunes instead of a website. I mean, the search engines have already started to make those changes to the way that they do things.
I do also think that when it comes to apps, and because they've proliferated to such a degree, it's not just about searching for the apps. There are a lot of apps that you just have no idea exist, or use cases that they solve that you just didn't even know you had. So I think a lot of it is about the app developers pushing and sending you and helping you discover them through advertising. And they're actually a really big part of the display advertising ecosystem, just apps trying to generate downloads from viewers who are viewing other apps.
People discover apps through word of mouth, through traditional media. They see something in the newspaper or on TV. Apps become another thing that have to be marketed just like a website.
What top segments are leading the pack in monetizing mobile traffic?
Tablet users, I think. I mean, as far as Kenshu released data recently that said that 3% of all traffic all revenue over the holidays was generated from tablet tablet users. I'm sorry. So if you can, really target those tablet users, then that traffic will monetize more than even smartphone users.
Is the question about what categories of content or advertisers are seeing?
I was thinking of categories of content, but yeah.
So where's the volume? Where's the consumer
Yes,
action?
yes.
Well, I mean, I think travel, entertainment.
Entertainment, yeah.
Restaurants is, I think, the number one category. Hotels
Yeah.
are very popular, but also news, is a huge one in mobile. Unfortunately, there's many charts that could be pulled out, but I don't have them here. Do you guys have any other?
I think we'd probably all agree that games is probably on the low end of that, although lots and lots of volume, but just doesn't monetize all that well.
What do you guys think about the Google Android versus iPhone, Apple? What's going to happen there? Anything interesting?
Well, it's interesting from a customer experience. Having a single device that you're optimizing everything from hardware to software makes it for a really very nice and seamless experience. And so it's very tough to beat on that front, but it's just such a closed ecosystem. And so many of the things that I think across the ecosystem people are trying to do are just being curtailed because it's just not possible. So one of the examples I mentioned before, cookies, where the entire advertising industry on the web is built around this paradigm of cookies, and it just can't be ported to mobile, even the web, just because iOS doesn't support it. So at some point, they've got to start opening up some of these constraints they have.
I always think on this debate, the interesting thing is to look at the other platforms, BlackBerry and Windows Mobile, the Microsoft. I guess Palm is still out there as an open source platform now. We'll see if it has any, is resuscitated. The question is really, this goes to websites and apps, right? I mean, if you're going to build an app, you only build an app for iPhone and Android, and you would use a mobile website to reach the other platforms. If Microsoft's Windows Phone gets traction, then you might start building apps for that one as well, but still it's early. I don't know if anybody would disagree with that.
No, I think that's right. And even as Android volume picks up and starts exceeding that of iPhone, usage. It's still interesting that app developers are first developing for the iPhone just because it's a prettier experience. The app just looks better. So it's not
They're
just
making
numbers.
more money. They make
That's
money.
right. It's easier to monetize. That's true.
I mean, that's a point. If you're charging for your app, it's much easier to make money on the iOS than it is on Android, which we could go into at length. But it's really about the billing. The billing system is much smoother and baked in better on iOS.
About 50%, I think I mentioned this morning, of searches on mobile are for local. So do users searching on local keywords convert better? And again, if you were to start working on mobile, would you try to go local as quickly as you could?
And to Ellie's point, once they put that location information in the creative, that actually, the click-through rates increase substantially, and I think you do find that with local keywords as well. The challenge is that as GPS is incorporated into Google search, you don't necessarily need to put in the am I still on? Okay. So it doesn't really look like a local keyword. It might say, food or something like that, and Google understands that it's local, but it doesn't say food in Chicago or food in Santa Monica, because the GPS will show you relevant results regardless. So, as long as you understand what those local keywords are and the fact that they don't necessarily need to be geo-modified, they do tend to convert a lot better because that is what people are looking for.
If you had to each say one soundbite for the audience as to what you think is important with mobile, what would it be?
Optimize your mobile sites. I think that not enough people pay attention to mobile SEO, and mobile SEO is kind of it's the new wave of SEO in the sense that you have mobile searchers looking for different things than desktop searchers. You've got new indices with the engines. So my one soundbite would be mobile SEO.
Mine is localized. Everything you do on mobile has to be local, whether it be the website you build, the ads you run, or the experiences you create. Everything has to be local on mobile. That's the paradigm of mobile.
And I would say get started and experiment because I think the initial efforts that you make may not be entirely successful. There's a lot of directory sites, a lot of apps, a lot of places to put your data or to I mean, it depends on who you are, but you need to jump in and get started now, and then you'll be able to develop expertise and sophistication over time. And if you wait, people who are in a competitive position will be already there. There was a well, I won't say anything more.
I mentioned this morning that I think it's critical that you are able to measure the success of the mobile. Do you have any recommendations for the audience as to how you can do that? I mean, how do you gather the statistics and the data, again, if they're kind of starting out?
A lot of people have Google Analytics already, and Google Analytics does mobile app tracking and mobile site tracking. You need a different code, but I find that Google Analytics at this point is a good starter solution.
At a minimum, you can see where your traffic is coming from, and you can see in your site analytics how much of your traffic is coming from different devices. So you'll know immediately that people are accessing your site via mobile devices. In terms of attribution or what's contributing to conversions, that's a harder problem, and it sort of depends on who you are. I just did a research project with a hotel chain, national hotel chain, where we were trying to measure mobile conversions or the contribution of mobile to conversions. And in the end, it was very difficult. They said, we know mobile is contributing, we know people are looking for us, and we know people are coming in after doing these lookups, but we didn't have any online conversions at all from mobile.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's one of those white space areas where solutions still need to be built, especially on the ad side. But on the website, on the app side, you've got Flurry for the apps, and then maybe Google Analytics for the websites.
You all mentioned to, start testing, start getting out there, tried and true, and see what works and what doesn't. Can each of you give maybe a great piece of advice of something that did not work or something that you need to stay away from?
I can go for it. I can try this one. We had a lot of failures initially when we first started running hyperlocal campaigns for businesses, and I think the issue is the inventory is very, very difficult to come by. So if you want to run ads, it's not easy to get access to those ads. Most of the mobile ad networks actually don't have self-serve, and the ones and then they won't actually even talk to you unless you're willing to sign a $10,000 or $15,000 IO to just test their stuff. So if you want to do a small scale experiment, it's actually pretty tough. So definitely make sure you have access to the inventory before you start, and really focus on making sure it's the right type of inventory, it's got the right targeting parameters, and before you even begin to test.
And I would go back to something Bryson said. I mean, I sort of embraced the list of vendors on the Google How to Go Mo site for kind of converting your site into a mobile version. But I wouldn't simply just do it in a kind of perfunctory way and use the simplest or cheapest thing you can find. I mean, I would really put some time and thought and try and create a mobile site that you actually would use. You should definitely look at your site on these devices, see what they look like, and try and invest a little bit of time and money and thought into making a site that you and your customers, friends, colleagues would actually use and benefit from, rather than simply having a site that you can say, look, I've got a mobile site.
I totally agree with that, and I would add some specific piece of advice that, not that we've done as a mistake, but something that I've seen a lot. A lot of people are trying to make sure that mobile users don't get their desktop content, so they'll actually block it in their robots text file. But it's totally not necessary. Google has said that it's not necessary. So just use user agent detection instead of trying to control it with robots text, because you could end up taking your content out of the index entirely, which would make it invisible when someone relevant is searching for it.
Thank you. I think for what was a difficult question, you all gave great answers. Why don't we open it up to Q&A? And I'd like to think there are quite a few questions out there in this area.
I guess you were wrong.
Sure. So basically, some mobile SEO consultants and others recommend that you make sure that you're blocking your desktop site for mobile traffic through robots text. And I would say to not do it that way. Instead, to look at user agent detection and make sure that your mobile users are directed towards your mobile site, and your desktop users are directed towards your desktop site. And you won't have to worry about Google indexing the wrong content.
We have a question over here.
Yeah, I saw that you guys noticed, or you guys referenced QR codes on there a few times.
Yeah.
And there's near-field communication that's coming out, and the tags. How is that going to change the way users use their mobile devices?
I think the primary way this changes the landscape is that all of a sudden you have a closed loop where you can actually go all the way from an advertiser advertising all the way to a consumer paying and purchasing the item in the real world, and you can track it through the entire funnel. And I think that leads to some really, really interesting types of campaigns where you can now actually know exactly how much value every dollar spent is bringing back. So the ROI calculation gets a lot easier.
Would it mean really, really targeted ads as well, though? Because if you've got a tag on an item of like say a shovel, when you click the shovel and then pops up where you can buy it on Amazon or something like that on the phone.
Yeah, definitely. And the more information you have, the more you can target.
The thing with QR codes, which may or may not be transient depending upon what happens, is that often people will just have stupid stuff behind them. They haven't thought through what should show up when a user scans that code, like additional information or a video or a demo or something that's going to actually contribute to a conversion or help them. They're just bringing you to a website, which is often not very helpful.
From an advertiser standpoint, at one point in your presentation, gentleman in the middle, sorry, I didn't get everybody's name, you had said there's a lot of inventory out there that's inexpensive, and it's a good opportunity to test. And then towards the end of it, you said that there's, inventory is hard to come by, and it's difficult to access because of all the different platforms. So from an advertiser standpoint, is there an opportunity to come in and test mobile and figure it out and try to do it, or is it really a difficult thing to do?
Yeah, sorry. It's the amazing question, right? On the one hand, you've got all this inventory, and on the other hand, it's incredibly hard to get to. And I think that's just a consequence of the fast growth of the industry, where 2 years ago you had absolutely nothing, and now you have this massive industry, and the technology and the tools haven't actually emerged yet. So that's the problem of getting access to the inventory. It's very short-lived, and for instance, we're working on a solution to that. That's our reason for existence, is to give advertisers easy access to as much inventory as they need, because the inventory is there. It's just, one of the things that happens is if you're an ad network and you've got, let's say, 5 billion impressions a month that you're serving, it's just so easy to go straight to the big advertisers and sell to them. And the smaller advertisers sort of get squeezed because they don't have the self-serve built out yet. They don't have the tools to actually build the campaigns quickly, so they have to go to the lowest hanging fruit, the guys who are going to spend the biggest checks. And so that's part of the problem, why there's a lot of inventory and it's not easily accessible, but that's a very short-term situation. That inventory is going to be easy to get to soon.
Just want to ask one more question. So is the issue then, is there an opportunity for a company who can bring in good ad-serving technology to the mobile, or has that really been addressed at the moment by the companies that are there?
It hasn't actually, no. So there is definitely an opportunity across the entire mobile ad ecosystem to bring a lot of the tools that were built for the online world. The holes exist in mobile. The industry is maybe where the online industry was in the early 2000s. There's a lot of technology that still needs to be built.
Thank you.
Okay, one more question.
I'm Richard Lau from Ocean Networks. You had a slide about specifically talking about the mobile sites and when you're deciding, or how the users are using mobile sites versus the classic view. As a user who's avidly on my smartphone multiple times a day, I'm always clicking, or the first thing I'm looking for is the classic view, and it frustrates me that some of these guys trim their classic site or their traditional site down so narrowly on the mobile. So do you have any stats on how many people are actually using the mobile version versus clicking through to the full version? And then secondly is, as a publisher, what should we be deciding on to throw away or to not include when we're doing the mobile version?
So I get frustrated myself with some sites because you're looking for specific information that you expect to find on that site, and it's not there, so you need to go to the full site. And so I don't think that you should have that problem to begin with. I think that even though you should tailor your user experience to that mobile searcher, you should still give them access to everything else. So you either have a link to a full site, or you have all of the rest of the content is at least transcoded for that mobile searcher or mobile user, right? So I think that even though in general people expect mobile user experiences, I think that you're actually kind of in the minority in that most people aren't looking for that full site. They're looking for that mobile experience that that mobile site that speaks specifically to their experience. When publishers give that experience to those mobile users, the conversion rates are generally much higher. At the same time, you really do need to have either a full site link or the rest of the site should at least be transcoded so that you can access it so you don't frustrate your users. So I don't think you should eliminate anything.
I want to add something. I don't think that consumers are looking for mobile sites or full sites in particular. They're looking for information, and I think there's a lot of paternalistic decisions being made about what information should be available and what shouldn't be available. But I think that what they really want is to accomplish something, and they want to get access to the most relevant information to that task, and it just needs to be fast and it needs to be accessible to them on a smaller screen. And I think that that's conceptually the bottom line. That's
My final quick question then on that is, would you recommend then making just a really long page, including everything in there, but having the mission on the top, and or do you just have it as a mission short page with a link to the classic view?
So,
what's your recommendation?
so it's difficult without seeing an actual site to say what the best path is here, but basically you do want to make it as simple as possible without leaving a lot of information out. And mobile users are not really going to scroll, so even if you do put a lot of information below the fold, you want to put the most important information towards the top. But I think that if you give them a simple user experience where they don't need to scroll, and then allow them to view everything else either through a full site link or through links to other parts of your site, I don't think that you really need to do more than that.
Great, thanks.
Sure.
One last question.
Hello. It was mentioned that cookies doesn't play a part in mobile applications. However, it's a big part of tracking when it comes to affiliate marketing online. And that's how they do their stats and so forth. And so how would you do that on mobile with the affiliate? How would you run that tracking system, or what would take the place on mobile for that?
I believe it's done through a user ID. So are you asking how you track a download back to?
Yeah, like for example, somebody, like in the past, somebody clicks on a site, and if they return within 30 days, you get credit for the sale or so forth. And this plays a part in affiliate marketing. So how would you do that on mobile?
Yeah, I think so. Most of that is being done by the user ID. So every phone has an ID, and you just track it, and you try to keep that in your records. The issue is that iOS has basically said that they're going to deprecate the user ID, or they're not going to give app developers access to it, and I think it's a big issue.
Okay, thank you.
That's a whole privacy
Yeah.
debate.
Okay, well, I want to thank the panel, so let's give them a round of applause. Obviously, I still think this is a fascinating subject and one that's going to continue to grow, so we'll probably be hearing from you guys a lot in the future. Going forward, we're going to have a short coffee and snack break in the Wedgwood Ballroom, and then we'll start our next panel discussion at 3:30. So see you at the Starlight Ballroom. Thank you.